This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And we're joined by Dr. Thomas Anaba. Dr. Professor Gachi has taken leave of us. Dr. Atta Kennedy too needed to, take a break because he has a flight to catch. Well, now let's talk about matters of corruption and also President Mahama issuing some directives. And the directives are specific to foreign affairs lands. President Mahama has directed the reversal of all allocations and sale of land belonging to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by the previous government. He says there should be an immediate reversal of such sales. The directive ensures that the ministry's lands at airport residential area claimed by 7 organizations and individuals will now be cancelled and preserved for the people of Ghana, according to Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa. He also says, under my watch as Foreign Affairs Minister, no land or property of the ministry located either home or abroad will be sold. So, Kofi, how do you process that?
I think we are making a mess of the management of state assets, and we're actually breaking the law in the process. We have evolved all kinds of conventions which are not rooted in law. And essentially, these conventions have been designed to facilitate looting by various governments and their cronies. That is why you see people allocate lands, state lands, and all those other things, including cars. Okay, now, let me disclose this. So I am working on a case which hopefully I'll bring in. I invite anybody. Nowadays we are slow, so the younger men can take it up. See, for instance, when it comes to state vehicles, the chief of staff will write a letter and grant more or less, what they call waiver or something. There's a name they call it, for the car to be sold to somebody at, peppercorn rates. That is not lawful. The chief of staff does not have any authority to take state assets and instruct that it should be given to Samson at a peppercorn rate. The same for lands. And if you go through...
The lands are vested in the president.
The lands are vested... Lands. I'm talking about disposal.
Right.
The lands are vested in the president. And if you go from the Constitution Act 257 vesting, and if you go to Public Procurement 663, how it is, disposed of, etc., it shall be done according to the Public Procurement Act. In fact, ultimately leads to an auction. It is not lawful for anybody, including the president, in whom our assets have been vested, to write and say, give the land to this person. All right? If you say you're going to give it to Prof here or this person there, it's state land. Why should it be given to this particular person? The state should get the best benefit, the highest, level of, revenue from it. Why don't you put it out there? And if he wins, that's fine. What I'm saying simply is this. Our politicians outside law have evolved systems which allow them to loot us. And by the way, it is also in Article 296 that if you are not a judge and you are given this power, you will publish a process, a system by which you exercise that power. In other words,
the exercise of discretion.
Exercise of discretion. These things that have been going on both parties is a loot of state resources. And we have the experience that it goes to their friends and cronies. So yes, it's a good thing that President Mahama says, stop it. But we shouldn't get to this point. And I hope President Mahama will be the last person who has to deal with it, because you know what he can do in 4 years? He can have these rules published under Article 296 that nobody, not even he, the president, because he's holding it in trust, shall allocate, give, grant, waive, that any state resource, car, land, building, should be given to any other person except by these processes. And Act 663 is there. In short, if there's a determination that this asset is no longer useful, or there's a reason why it must be disposed of, there's a process, and it must necessarily go to auction. Right? When Franklin discussed the stewardship model in the forum, okay, these are some of the things that go into it. there's no time to talk about it, but people must go into government knowing that you are a steward. A steward doesn't go into government trying to loot things as if he has just won a war. So I commend President Mahama. He just stopped one thing, but he can go ahead and stop more things by making sure that nobody, not the chief of staff or anybody anywhere, may allocate state property to any private person under any circumstance except by the process of law as should be promulgated under Article 296, so that everybody knows that this is how it is done. Too much of it has happened, okay, and we have ended up passing on the foreign affairs lands that we are talking about. Look at it. I mean, we could get millions from them, and we just end up with peppercorn rates, and they are bushes anyway. So it should stop. All of it should stop, not just this one.
The peppercorn rate you are talking about, they are also in the law and in the jurisprudence of land transactions. So if you check the oral oral documentation, when they mentioned the former NIB boss, his acquisition, you will find that every documentation shows that the land was properly acquired.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
The only problem they raise will be that he acquired it for, say, 160,000 Ghana cedis
instead of,
when that same land, the going price in the market will be, say, 700,000 US dollars.
Yes.
They suggested to us. But the person would have fulfilled all the legal process.
That's my point. My point is they have evolved conventions outside the law by which they allocate state properties to themselves and their cronies. Which is why I'm saying, you know, Article 296. We know public procurement. The laws are there. And I'm saying it is not lawful because this person who got the land, he may not have stolen it. It's the same case with Honorable Afenyo-Markin. He says he leases his land. But the point is, how is it that somebody sits somewhere, he gets into power today, and then tomorrow he allocates state lands to his friends? It's not right. And the law does not allow that. So I'm urging the president that because 296 is there, that one, nobody, even he, the president, who is holding it in trust, cannot allocate it to you, Samson. So if for any reason a determination is made, these are the processes by which it will be made. And if there is going to be a disposal of the asset, these are the processes. It's all in the law. And make that law hard and fast.
In this case, you can predict, Kofi Bentil, as a lawyer, that these 7 institutions and individuals who got these lands, the paper trail will show that they may have gotten it clean.
Yes.
And you are going to take it back because you felt the price at which it was sold was too cheap, and perhaps that this is a new government and you don't subscribe to the policy that led to the selling of these lands. That's going to be a battle in court.
It will be a battle that I will win. You and I know about an unconscionable contract. We know about all kinds of rules, ethics, conventions, and systems where you can prove that this was not properly acquired. There are all kinds, we can discuss all of those things, but basically simply based on an unconscionable contract. If so, he has a defense that I didn't steal the land. But the state can go in and say, no, somebody did something wrong for you to get this. Even if we have to compensate you, we may have to compensate you. But taking the land back is entirely lawful and proper. And it is not enough to take this land
back.
The
one selling the land to me said it is available not only to me, but to other people at 160,000 Ghana cedis. Then a change of government comes in. And then you say, oh, this land is prime land. It could fetch us as much as 700,000 US dollars. Because of that, what should the court say?
And I'm saying,
what did me, the buyer, what did I do wrong?
You are a bona fide purchaser, okay? And that is fine, which is why I'm saying you may be entitled to compensation. But the person who is now in charge of that property, who can prove that it was given to you improperly, at the least as an unconscionable bargain, because you can't buy a Mercedes-Benz for 10 cedis. You ought to know. So I'm saying the law of it is there, okay? But this is what we must avoid. A situation where people claim to have gotten state property fair and square at peppercorn rates and therefore they own it. No, it must stop. And I'm saying the law exists. So what the president can do is not to stop this one, But to go forward and make clear to everybody that he is the president who holds the assets of this country in trust according to 257, cannot give it to his friends and whatever it is like they've done in the past, because it is wrong.
Some of the
and
lands,
we know what has
including
happened.
the Parks and Garden lands that we heard about, some of them were sold, actually not in this, in the NPP government, but the previous government, NDC government. And they sold it and they gave the reason that the Parks and Gardens,
they needed tools.
They didn't have anything. You go to their offices and you see how they look like.
Yes.
So we are going to sell, make money, and use the money to put up a good edifice for you, get you cars, get you equipment. What's wrong with those?
All of those are the excuses they give for the loot. That is one. Now, we can go into it and find out whether that happened or not. However, all of that said, assuming that it is entirely true that we needed to sell that land to get Parks and Gardens, equipment and whatever it is, the law says, do not give an instruction that it should be sold to Samson. You don't have that right. It's state property. You hold it in trust. If the determination is made that we need A, B, C, and D, and we need to sell that land, there's a law that says you put it on an auction, you do A, B, C, and D, and take the highest value for it. So that whole point of...
You know how the auction can be managed.
Well, you see, that is how you build institutions. Right now, we are stage one. They are doing things which are clearly unlawful. We'll go to the auction, which is lawful. Somebody wants to game the auction. We will have a way of dealing with that one also. But let's do the right things, all right? And let me tell you, if these things are published sufficiently and everybody knows it and the auction is there, you come and you are trying to game the auction. Other people are interested. And they will work for you to make sure you can...
Even Okudzeto Blackbur's proposal, he began with a private member's bill, which we understand in this regime will become a state-sponsored bill to make a law that says politically exposed persons will not purchase state property.
I totally agree. In fact, I have an addition to that. That anybody who is politically exposed may not, when they are in office or 4 years thereafter, purchase any state properties and cannot participate in an auction because of the gaming. You know, the time here is not enough to go through all of this. But when you say they will game the auction, okay, who's going to do it? It's the politicians and their friends. So that private members bill, I've discussed it, and I haven't spoken to Okudzeto, but I would want him to add that no PEP shall participate in an auction, one. Number two, 4 years after you leave office, you may not. Okay, that's part of the stewardship we're talking about.
Okay.
Right? And of course, people say, oh, they will let their cronies go and do it. We'll deal with some of these things as we get there. But you see, we are creating a situation where people get into politics just to amass wealth and create capital. And it is bad for our country because in other places it's led to civil wars. We should stop it somewhere. If you want to amass your property and get whatever, go to the private sector, go and work.
Interesting. Okay, so...